As the shooting death of Ahmaud Arbery sparks outrage around the country, defendants Gregory and Travis McMichael have stayed silent, letting their attorney speak for them.
We know several other critically important facts. Those facts that point to a very different narrative.
Behind the scenes, experts say they are mounting a defense that will likely challenge the notion that this was a racially motivated murder.
State of mind on both is going to be the entire case.
What were they thinking when they armed themselves and chased Ahmaud Arbery down the street of their South Georgia neighborhood? Earlier, Travis McMichael called 911 to report someone breaking into a nearby construction site.
We've had a string of burglaries. I was leaving the neighborhood, and I just caught a guy running into a house being built 2 houses down from me.
Gregory McMichael later told police he thought Arbery was the same person when he showed up at the construction site the afternoon of February 23rd.
We know that their state of mind was, we have a criminal here, potential criminal. We're going to stop him.
Just as important could be what the McMichaels might have known about Arbery before the deadly encounter.
The McMichaels would literally have to argue he has a history of violence, which I don't see from his prior criminal record. And I was aware of it because the awareness of his prior history of violence is what they would use to explain away their reaction of using the weapons.
Arbery's record includes an arrest in 2013 when he was 19 years old. Among the charges were carrying weapons on school property and obstructing law enforcement by use of threats or violence, a felony. Months after a parole violation, Glenn County Police confronted Arbery in a park on November 7th, 2017. Body camera footage shows an officer pull up behind Arbery's car. He was parked in what the officer described as an area known for drugs and other criminal activity.
Arbery, Nebraska, Georgia, C. Charlie, showing suspension and lawful failure to appear.
While the officer runs his driver's license, Arbery grows impatient.
Ma'am, my ID, please.
More words are exchanged, and the situation escalates, culminating in an attempted tasing. Police let him go with a warning not to drive his car because his license is suspended. Less than a month later, Arbery is caught shoplifting a television from Walmart. He is arrested and released from jail 2 days later. At least one more parole violation appears in his background. Then, Arbery's mother calls 911 on June 17, 2018.
911, where's your emergency?
She asks for help because her son took her car keys and won't give them back. She says he has, quote, mental issues that seem to be getting worse. She doesn't want him to be arrested.
If they're going to come out here and do us some love, if they do them love, out of us, I just don't come.
Ma'am, they're not going to do that. I mean, but they have to protect themselves. If he come and jump on them or start fighting them, they would.
Call y'all, because I've seen this on TV a lot.
A jury may never hear about Arbery's past because it's presumed irrelevant.
His past run-ins with the law, if any, they would first have to prove that they knew about it and that they were somehow relevant to his presence on the property at the time. Those are huge hurdles to jump over, and I think really just bad lawyering. If the defense relied on defaming the character of the victim, I think that they're going to earn the angst of the jury in the first place. So no, these previous incidents are completely irrelevant.
District Attorney Georgie Barnhill first raised Arbery's past in a letter, explaining his decision to not charge the McMichaels. Arbery's mental health records and prior convictions help explain his apparent aggressive nature and his possible thought pattern to attack an armed man. Gregory McMichael may have known Arbery from his work as an investigator from the district attorney's office. But it's not clear if he recognized Arbery the day of the shooting. Assessing whether Arbery's criminal past should play a part in his alleged murder will be up to a judge, possibly a jury, to decide.
And of course, the judge will have to decide that, but make no mistake, I mean, in all these criminal cases I've covered in Court TV through the years, I mean, the defense is always attempting to put someone else on trial, whether it's some other dude did it, someone else is responsible, or perhaps the victim themselves. So get ready, because it's going to happen. It will happen. At least they'll attempt to make it happen. Ultimately, it'll be up to a judge to decide. Let's bring in Chanley Painter. Chanley, I know there's some more news to report in this case. Specifically, the Department of Justice has met with Ahmaud Arbery's family's attorneys. What do we know about that?
Yeah, they did late last week, Vinny, and they released a statement today. Overall, really pleased with how this investigation is going. Now, remember, the Attorney General of Georgia called for the Department of Justice to investigate how this was handled by the first two prosecutors, why it took 2 months to make an arrest in this case when there was that viral video out there that investigators had from day one, and also asked that the DOJ investigate this as a hate crime. Well, that's being confirmed today after this meeting last week through the family attorneys. The mother and father of Ahmaud Arbery, along with their attorneys, met with the DOJ last week, and they released this statement. It says that their legal team met with the officials as well as Bobby Christine, the U.S. attorney for the Southern District. Now, according to Mr. Christine, his office is investigating why it took so long to arrest the individuals responsible for Mr. Arbery's death. This would involve the consideration of both civil and criminal charges against state officials and other conspirators involved in the murder of Ahmaud Arbery. We left that meeting, they said, feeling satisfied that the DOJ would do their part to fully investigate the players involved in this murder and that they would hold those responsible accountable. So that's confirming that this investigation is ongoing. What charges could these first prosecutors face, or those who handled the case in the beginning? And as we know, and as we've reported here on Court TV, Georgia is one of a small handful of states that don't have hate crime laws. So that investigation is also ongoing with the FBI and the Department of Justice, Vinny.
All right, so really two different roads, and one including an investigation of the investigators. Now, Lee Merritt, who is the family attorney, did speak with us last week. Let's take a listen.
The civil process is obviously going to take a backseat to the criminal process. Right now, we are running a civil rights investigation. We're supplementing any information we find or passing it along, I should say, to the district attorney's office. We met with the DOJ today with members of the FBI, and they are also pursuing both criminal and civil investigations into what happened. And they acknowledge, of course, that their civil case, which was going to be very important.
All right, let's bring in the rest of the team now. Ashley Banfield, Julie Grant, Ted Rollins joining us tonight. Ashley, let me begin with you with the investigation of the investigators. I mean, that's obviously an important part of this story. It's not necessarily going to be relevant at the murder trials that we'll be covering. But let's start with the investigation of the investigation. I mean, to me, it's a big part of what happened here.
Sure, and it's not the first time we've seen it either. I think you'll all remember, guys, the Michael Brown case in Ferguson. That became an investigation of the investigators, and the Department of Justice was also approached and actually engaged and investigated that entire case. And in the end, there was quite a robust report that was forwarded by the DOJ, and it absolved any, possible criminal activity or civil rights infractions on the part of Officer Darren Wilson. But it did determine there were some errors in what the witnesses said, that witnesses had made things up and they recanted, and it cleared up a lot of things that had become a rallying cry. For instance, hands up, don't shoot. The witness who had begun that actually recanted and said it wasn't true. But more importantly, Vinny, what did happen is that the police department in Ferguson really took a thrashing. And the DOJ determined that there was just sort of widespread need for correction all throughout that department. So it's entirely possible that you'll see something like that. You could see, well, listen, you could see anything, right? In the beginnings and the offings of an investigation, no one should ever prognosticate what the result is going to be. But we do see in other cases that that's how far and wide the investigation went.
Julie Grant, I call you like the professor of Court TV because you literally are a law professor as well. But let's talk about Ahmaud Arbery's past. I mean, to me, it's not relevant. It doesn't seem like it should come in, but case after case, I know defense attorneys often try to put someone else on trial. And here, there's no one else that's going to be responsible other than the people directly involved. They can't point the finger at some other party here. So I think they're going to go after Ahmaud Arbery.
Yes, correct, Vinny, correct. And you're right. And this is something I'm glad I came prepared for your show in full professor mode. We've got to look to the rules of evidence to know if this can possibly come in. So we generally use the federal rules of evidence as a guide. Every state does things a little differently, but the way things are taught in law school, we go under the federal rules. And here's what it says. A victim's character can come into evidence as part of a self-defense case. And this is how. In a homicide case or an assault case, the defense team, as part of the self-defense plea, as you will, can take the initiative to show that the victim was first the aggressor. Okay, the way they can do this by reputation evidence or opinion evidence. They have to have witnesses coming in and saying this individual had a reputation for being violent and aggressive and was known in the community that way. It's not as simple as just picking up somebody's rap sheet and saying, here you go, I'm going to mark this into evidence and offer it. No. It doesn't happen like that. And then the other thing that happens is something I like to call the fairness dance, right? So if the defense tries to do this and say the victim was first the aggressor and Ahmaud Arbery was the aggressor here, we know that from reputation evidence, let's say they can demonstrate that, then the prosecution has a chance to respond. And they can do it one of two ways. They could show good reputation and good opinion evidence in the community about Ahmaud Arbery, or they could also show bad reputation and bad opinion evidence with regards to the defendant. So it cuts both ways, Vinny, and we shall see if this is an evidence battle this defense team wants to get into as this case proceeds toward trial.
Ted Rowlands, the Department of Justice now involved, and we're talking about a hate crime investigation. The hate crime, to me, doesn't become super relevant unless we end up with not guilty verdicts here. Because if we get guilty verdicts on felony murder, all the defendants are gone for life, at least life without parole, right? At least. But there's always a chance that it comes back with something less or a not guilty, and then all of a sudden, this federal investigation becomes very crucial.
Oh, absolutely. And I think you're right. But people are looking at this video and they're thinking, well, for sure there's going to be a guilty conviction in this case. Look at the video. May not. You know, this is going to be a fascinating case, and there is a chance that, as disgusting as it seems after watching this video, there's a chance that they could walk here. We have to see what else is out there, what other video is out there. Both sides are claiming there's more to this case, so you're absolutely right. This could just be the beginning of what we see the McMichaels being confronted with in terms of more charges. But I caution people to think just watching this video, oh, it's a slam dunk. By no means is it.
No, it never is. I've learned that lesson way too many times, both as a prosecutor and, of course, in my years at Court TV. All right, we'll be seeing everybody throughout the next 3 hours, folks, but coming up next.